Are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Are you over being so fatigued that you don't have energy for your kids, for your partner, for yourself, for your friends? Are you overwhelmed with everyday life and not sure why? Do you feel like that everybody else seems to be able to cope and handle, but for some reason you can't? Well, to cover these mystery complex cases, I've brought together some of the most brilliant minds in the alternative health space. We'll be talking everything from psychedelics to mental health, mindfulness, spiritual health, physical health. If it has to do with living your best life, I'm going to have a guest on covering that topic. Hey there, I'm Heather Gray, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner, and I am the Renegade Health Boss. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you will enjoy this show. Welcome our very special guest, Karen Parker. Yay!
I'm excited to be here, and your enthusiasm makes me feel excited and also a little bit pressured. So,
Oh, no pressure. I'm just a generator, right?
uh,
I'm just a generator. So yeah, you're probably got a lot of energy coming at you as a projector, and you're like, ooh, let's try to manage this, right?
well, I'm actually a manifesting generator, so
Oh, manifesting generator. Why did I
yeah,
think you were a projector?
I don't know, but I know a lot of them, and I have a daughter who's a projector that I
Okay, my
talk
husband's a projector, but I digress. Before we jump into these words that some of you may not have heard before, the reason that I invited Karen to the show is because the human design work has extremely helped change my life of understanding who I am and why I operate, right? And I find that when people really know themselves, they can level up in any level of any area of their life. And that's the name of this show today is elevating your life script, right? Like how beautiful is that?
Hmm.
So I would love to hear, Miss Dr. Karen, how did you get into the line of work that you're doing, and just tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, I'm almost 60 years old, so that's a really long story. We could spend hours just answering that question, but I'll keep it short. For me, it really was serendipity and synchronicity is how I got here. And and that's really the only explanation. I first encountered human design when my first husband hit a really major burnout, which is something, I think we should talk about in the context of Lyme disease and human design. And I sent him off to go on a spiritual retreat to Sedona, Arizona. We had 4 kids at the time. We were living in suburban Houston. He came back from Sedona with a chart, and I took one look at that chart, and something inside of me just went off. It was like I always think of it as almost like a temple bell went off inside of me, and my whole being just was like, I have to go study this and learn this. And we literally within 2 weeks put the house on the market, packed up the kids, moved to Sedona. I mean, and they were little at that time. They were like 2, 3, 4, and 5 because they were all really close in age. So we packed them in and we moved across the country from Houston to Sedona. And when we got there, my youngest son had an ear infection. So I took him to the pediatrician's office and came out from the pediatrician's office with his kid on my hip. And across the hallway was a door with the human design symbol on it. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to go in here and see what this is. So I opened the door and there was this big desk and this little tiny woman behind the desk. And she asked me, are you here for the job? And I said, yeah, I am. And she hired me there on the spot. That was the headquarters for human design in America at the time, Human Design America. And I got the opportunity then to work for Human Design America um, and to study with the founder of Human Design, Ra Uru. And the rest, as you say, is history, sort of, because there's a long, long story that goes along with all of that.
You seriously, I started getting goosebumps when you started talking about your husband, and they didn't stop. They just kept getting
Mhm.
bigger and bigger and bigger as you continue to talk. Like, that's incredible. So what did you do? What were you doing in the world before you found human design? Like, what was
Well,
your background?
I was young, first of all. That was because I was still like not even 30 yet at that point.
Okay.
But I was a nurse by training.
Oh, okay.
I also I had a degree in nursing and journalism because I was curious and also scientific.
Oh, I
Uh,
love it.
I was trained as a life coach, actually was one of the very first life coaches trained in the world. I trained with Thomas Leonard in
Oh my
1998.
gosh, that's
Um,
incredible.
and I was an energy psychologist and an energy healer, or an energy psychology practitioner, sorry, and an energy healer. And all of that sort of all kind of congealed in my human design education and how I implemented human design as a coaching tool and really more as a coaching slash therapeutic tool.
That's absolutely incredible. So for those that don't know, or maybe absolutely brand new, what is human design? Can you distill that down for a little bit?
I can give you the complicated definition, which is human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. And just like with traditional astrology, you just take your birthday, birth time, and birthplace, plug it into a computer program these days, and then it spits out a chart. And that chart really basically it looks like a map. It looks like a map with a lot of weird wires and things coming out
I'm
of
gonna
it.
I'm gonna share my screen really quick. Is that
Yeah,
okay? I'll show them. I just pulled mine up before we got on. So this is what it looks like, folks.
look at you,
Yeah.
you little powerhouse of love and joy. Um,
So yeah, look at all these lovely lines and colors and
so
symbols.
I have a question for you based on
Yeah.
your chart here. Do you have Lyme disease? Because I don't know. Did you have
Oh,
Lyme disease?
absolutely. 27 years of undiagnosed Lyme disease, mold toxicity, 3 autoimmune diseases, 100 pounds overweight, 2 suicide attempts.
Okay. Well, here's what I want to point out in your chart, and this is something I want to bring us back to. So if you look at your chart, go to the little triangle that's to the right of the heart.
Oh, the little, okay, the
Yeah, the little
spleen.
one. So, okay, so the chart is a map of how you use energy. So, and I think that's a really important way to understand it because sometimes we look at the chart and we think, oh, this is who I am. It's not who you are, it's how you be. And that's a really important distinction because
How you be. I love it.
we want to use it as a labeling system because it's our way of combating the uncertain. But you're born to interact and engage and be in the world in a very specific way. And that way of being is part of what I like to call your soul curriculum. And oftentimes, our soul curriculum involves the process of forgetting what we came here to do. And then over the course of time, going through a journey where we remember, right? And that forgetting part is what we call conditioning, right? We learn very quickly from the world, from our parents with the best of intentions, from society. We learn very quickly, that maybe it's not okay or even safe for us to be who we are or how we are because we don't fit into the definition or the formula for how to be successful in the world. And because we want to please our parents and we want to be safe and we want to have money and all those things that we're told we have to do to occupy that identity, right? We learn oftentimes to hide ourselves. And when we hide ourselves, it takes a lot of energy to hold up that facade, that identity that we learn to cultivate, right? We learn to be good, or some of us learn to be rebellious, and even being rebellious takes a lot of energy. We learn sometimes just to give up and be kind of mediocre and have a meh kind of life, right? Now, I find that by design, certain people don't have the same capacity to hold up that fake facade or to live up that fake identity, that inauthentic identity. And oftentimes these are people who are highly intuitive. Oftentimes these are people who are here to be healers themselves. Oftentimes these are people who have a life path of helping other people heal that disconnect between who they were told they should be and actually who they were born to be. And that's you, by the way, right? And so if you look at your chart here and you see that little triangle that I pointed out, if you go to the left where there's a number 26,
Okay.
that's called the gate 26. That correlates to this 26 hexagram from the Chinese I Ching. If you go over to the right hand, we're going really complex here. If we go over to the right hand side of your chart where Neptune is, that Neptune is highlighting that gate 26, which means part of your spiritual purpose is working with this theme. Now, this theme is called integrity, but it's integrity that's about structural integrity. It's not necessarily about moral integrity. And for you, integrity is part of your soul curriculum. you have very little wiggle room in being authentic. You If you're not authentic, your body is gonna is because your body's gonna let you know. So
Yeah.
this D26 physically is associated with the thymus and the immune system. And so when we get out of integrity with our authentic identity and with our own self-worth, because self-worth lives in this little triangle, then our immune system tanks. And
Mm.
I find when I work with people who have any kind of autoimmune disorder, and I actually would consider Lyme disease to be somewhat of an autoimmune disorder, even though technically we could say, okay,
Yep.
there's spirochetes and there's these kinds of things, right?
Yep.
There are people who have Lyme disease or encounter Lyme disease who don't get sick, right?
Yep.
And it's really when our immune system is compromised that it can become a chronic issue. And of course, there's other issues associated with it too, like we don't know how to diagnose it. But the thing that's really important to understand is that autoimmune and immune issues are directly tied metaphorically and influence the function of the immune system. So in the rest of the story of the first question you asked me, eventually, after a long and varied career in human design, I went back to school to study the impact of your personal narrative, the story you tell the world and yourself about who you are and how you are on your immune system. Because in my practice, I saw over and 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 over again burned out people with chronic immune issues. And oftentimes these are people who were depleted, obviously burned out, sometimes bitter, and usually quite traumatized. Okay. And they were traumatized because they internalize the message. It's not okay for me to be who I am and how I am, and I can't be valued, I can't make money, I can't be loved, I can't have all those things I was promised I should have if I followed the rules. If right, if I stay true to who I am. And so when we give up who we are and we try to be something we're not, and we use all our energy trying to uphold that facade, and we haven't dealt with the trauma. And I would say that trauma can be micro traumatic, meaning it's not a major traumatic event, but it's a micro traumatic event, meaning over and over and over again, the world has told you it's not safe or okay for you to be who you are or how you are. You're not going to be successful being who you are and how you are. And we internalize that, right? And it ultimately actually impacts immunity. So when we start telling better stories about ourselves, literally, when we start shifting our personal narrative and we start saying, okay, wait a minute, I'm actually a unique and a once in a lifetime cosmic event. I was born to fulfill a very specific story in the overall human story. And when I'm not living that story, I suffer. And the body says, hell yeah, that's right. And if we don't listen to it, the body eventually says, I have to shake apart this whole story, this whole narrative. I can't do this anymore. And actually, I don't want to say it's a blessing. I really don't want to make light of people who are really suffering
I
physically.
say it all the time, the blessings of Lyme disease, and I get arrows in my back from some people, but I would not know how to take care of myself at the level that I have today if I wouldn't have gotten it. There are so many lessons I learned from this disease. It's beautiful.
Well, and it gives you a cosmic pause. These kinds of syndromes. I mean, again, I don't want to make light of it. And sometimes it's your body finally going, nah, not doing it, not doing it. I don't care what you think. I don't care how much money you think you're going to make. I'm not doing it. You want to do it, you get a different body. I'm staying here until I figure out how to get into alignment with myself. Right?
Oh, I have done over 200 interviews, and I'm vacillating from laughing to crying because you keep hitting that truth, right? And every time you hit the truth, it makes me cry. And then you make me laugh because you're hilarious. So this is fun. One of the biggest things that I learned, I think the biggest pieces that you gave me that my body then relaxed is that, so being a generator, frustration is my theme. Right.
Mhm.
And I don't know how many times, I get frustrated and that's it. I quit. I'm done. I'm actually in one of those cycles right now of frustration. And thank God you explained it so eloquently with the stair steps, like I've never heard before. Right. And that I'm just elevating up, and that if I can stay with that frustration and know that it's just me leveling up instead of giving up unless I get the invitation to do so. Right.
Mhm.
Because man, that right there, my whole body was just like, Oh, like what permission, right? It was just beautiful.
Well, and I think that that's one of the things that human design also brings as an educational tool, a self-educational tool, like you learn about yourself, is that different configurations in the chart create innate core emotional themes. And when you understand how you're hardwired to experience a specific emotional theme, so in your case, it's frustration, that is not actually a problem. We tend to think that emotions that are uncomfortable are problematic, right? That's not actually a problem. It's just your body is saying, hey, we're going through something right now, and this emotional energy is actually your signal that's helping you interpret where you're at. So, for example, as you said, if you're a generator type, so there are 5 energy types in human design, each type has a different way of being in the world, a little bit of a different life purpose, a little bit of a different way of making decisions. And each type has a specific emotional theme. You're a generator type, that's about 35% of the population. Your job is to take ideas and figure out which ones are the ones that stir up your passion the most, and then keep hammering away at those ideas and practicing them and implementing them and honing them and getting better and better and better at them until you become masterful over the process of learning. And frustration is a signal to you that you're about to go through a breakthrough. You're about to have a leap in growth or a cycle of momentum. If you're a manifestor type, that's about 8% of the population. The manifestor type has an emotional theme of anger. And if you have chronic anger going on in your life, it means that you might want to look at your environment and your internal environment as well, and check in and make sure that you're in an environment that's supporting you creatively, because that anger is a symptom of chronic creative disruption. If you're a third type, the manifesting generator, that's also about 35% of the population. You're actually kind of a hybrid of both of those others that I just talked about. And you get the lucky theme of having both anger, creative disruption, and frustration, momentum, as part of your emotional theme as well. The projector types, which are about 20% of the population, they are the managers and the guides in the system. Projector types have the theme of bitterness. That's their emotional theme. And that bitterness, as much as it seems like it can be problematic, that bitterness is a repelling energy, and it's a repelling energy with great, beautiful deliberation, because when you push people away, you're basically saying, I'm not available for anything right now. And really what that bitterness is, it's a symptom of being depleted and needing to pause and take a rest. But oftentimes what happens is we push through it and then we really push people away. And then lastly, there's another final type, the reflector type. They're less than 1% of the population. They have a theme of disappointment. And part of their disappointment comes from the fact that they really see the full potential of a human story. And they see what's possible for all of humanity. And they can be disappointed. And they can sometimes be disappointed because they see that potential and they leap towards it, and they oftentimes forget to assess, like, oh, is that person actually walking their talk, and they fall in love with that potential, and then they wake up one morning and they're very disappointed. So, and you have to learn, I mean, I think the power again of understanding your human design is you can start to say, oh, I'm not a quitter. That frustration, as you just talked about, that frustration means, as you said, I'm about to have a breakthrough. Or, ooh, this bitterness doesn't mean I'm a bitter person. It means I'm tired. I need to pause. I need to figure out how to rest, because I'm like flaming out in every area of my life. Though, when you learn to interpret those signals, it starts to give you key information that can help you navigate your life in greater alignment with your authentic self.
Oh my gosh, mic drop. Like what a gift that is, right? This is an amazing spot. We're going to take a really quick break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to dive a little deeper into elevating your life script, which I think we kind of already started getting into that. Because I just got so excited. But anywho, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When you're facing painful symptoms, a diagnosis of chronic Lyme, or an autoimmune disease, it can be overwhelming to navigate. You already know mainstream medicine doesn't have the tools to support you, and often even alternative medicine can become a maze of options without sustained results. Modern living puts significant stress on our systems. To counter this, we need a holistic approach, utilizing the latest technology and guided by physicians with decades of clinical experience. This is biological medicine. The Biomed Center in Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the most comprehensive clinics in the world, incorporating the latest diagnostics available, such as full-body MRIs, computer regulation thermography, heart rate variability, toxin screenings, and along with hormone and gut testing, they achieve the broadest look at all systems of the body. Customized protocols are developed by physicians who have treated thousands of patients in chronic disease by optimizing their biological performance. Save yourself years of suffering and searching with a visit to the Biomed Center, Scottsdale. The future of medicine is here.
EMF rocks, truly rocks. I adore this product. I am very sensitive. Most of us that have chronic illness, especially Lyme disease, are sensitive to EMFs. I can actually run a DNA test to show you if you're going to be sensitive to EMFs. Isn't that amazing? Anywho, I've tried a lot of different products out there, and the one that I have found that works and that's simple and elegant is EMF rocks. You can also get little Faraday cage bags for your cell phones. That's what I put my cell phone in when I am working at the computer. One, it kind of helps me stay focused on what I'm doing and not getting interrupted by my phone, but it also helps mitigate the EMFs coming from the phone. And then I have the rocks with me when I'm working at my desk. I actually have the rocks in bed with me when I sleep at night. And then sometimes if I'm going on long car trips, I'll bring it with me then to help mitigate the EMFs that are bouncing around in the car. Check them out at the resource section on my website. It's thelymeboss.com resource section. Trust me, you're going to love yours and you're going to want to get more. I need more rocks. Yay, welcome back, man. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. The first part was incredible. Like like I said, I absolutely geek out on this type of stuff. Anything from like Enneagrams to astrology to higher alignment to like all of them. I love disc, I love anything. And I think part of it too was growing up being squashed, being told, trying to fit into these boxes. And so I really am I love finding out about me and how I take it and really, the permission, because I definitely was not given permission when I was younger. So I think that's what I love about these type of work so much is it makes sense. Instead of making myself wrong my whole life, this stuff makes sense. And it's just what a gift, like what a gift.
I love that you say that because I do think that's probably the single biggest thing that I hear people say about human design, that it gives them permission to be themselves and they can relax and trust that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was, brought up, I was not taught to trust myself at all. I was, gaslit my whole life and then gaslit after, having Lyme disease. And so it took a really long time to figure out I am, what makes me tick, right? Because for the longest time you would ask me and I'd be like, I'm sorry, can you use that word in a sentence? Like I didn't know what turned me on, what got me excited, what I liked. Like it was sad. But now I'm loving this type of work and loving having these conversations with people like you who are bringing this gift to the world. So tell us a little bit more.
Well, you wanted to talk about elevating your life script. And so I'll go back to, I went to graduate school, got my PhD, and what I studied was the impact of narrative on the immune system. So I wanted to see what happens when you get stuck in a story that's not a great story and you keep telling that story over and over again. How does that impact the body? Because I don't know how it is for you, but it's like I can almost instantly spot when somebody's stuck in a story that doesn't feel good. You can see like it's in their countenance, it's in the way their body hangs on their bones. You can hear it in the tone of their voice. And if you can see it and sense it, if you're a sensitive person in someone so easily, I want to know, what does that do to the body? What does that do to the immune system in particular? And so over the course of many years, because of COVID, I took a lot of people into the lab and I had them share with me stories where they perceived themselves through whatever the experience was in the story as a victim. And then I would measure their immune response after telling the story. And what I found is that immediately after telling a story where you feel like you're a victim, your immune response goes down. Then I would take them through a process where I would have them use a script and rewrite that story so that through that story, they would then emerge as the victor. And that means they didn't necessarily have to change the circumstances, but their perception of the end result of the experience had to change so that they emerged the victor. So they either got a big lesson, they learned something, or they realized that maybe they didn't actually lose after all. And so after they rewrote the story, I had them come back and read the story to me. And then we went back and we measured the immune response, and it actually caused their immune response to go back almost to baseline. And so the narratives we tell, the stories we tell about who we are and how we are can impact our immune system. And this was I love to do this in the context of human design, because to me, human design is a storytelling tool. It lays out really a series of archetypes, parts of your story. Every chart is just a whole box full of archetypes, parts of the human story that are yours to explore in this lifetime. An archetype is neutral, right? If I say money, money is really just a neutral concept, right? It's something we exchange for value. But if you really look at money, when you start talking about money, or you start telling stories about money, or you start telling people about how you feel about money, it becomes one of the most supercharged, I think, archetypes that you can really talk about, right? We give it meaning, right? And the meanings that we give money actually cause your brain to produce photons, a light storm. That photon storm causes your brain then in turn to produce neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters cause your body to produce an specific emotional response. That emotional response, if it's a good emotional response, then puts your heart into a state of coherence, which is a highly attractive, highly creative, it's a really great feeling place, right? And it's an energy that allows you then to bring into your life things that match the story you're telling about money, if it's a good story. Now, if it's not a great story, like maybe you're feeling bitter about money, then what will happen is you actually kick yourself into a state of non-coherence. You'll create an emotional response that keeps the heart kind of shut down. You'll go, rather than going up into the heart as part of your creative energy, you go over to, in human design, we call this the spleen, but we'll say you go over to that part of your body that's responsible for reacting, meaning you act out your response to a traumatic event over and over and over again. So your body then goes into a state of low-grade fight or flight, elevated cortisol, and you're stressed. And when you're stressed, you don't create something new, because your brain, all those creative parts of your brain actually shut down, and you literally start reacting out the same story over and over again. We try to manifest by telling good stories, right? We say, I now have $5,000 that come to me in my mailbox every day via check, right? And we try to manifest these things. We try to create things by visualizing, by affirming. And that's all really cool. That works to a certain degree. But if the story you tell about who you are and how you are doesn't match what you're trying to create, meaning if you don't value yourself, you don't love yourself, you don't trust that you are empowered, if you don't have sovereignty over your own narrative, if you let fear run the show, if you are emotionally reactive, if you don't know how to make good decisions, if you're compromising on your authentic identity, if that's part of the story you're telling yourself in the world about who you are and how you are in the world, that's going to override whatever you're trying to create. And that's going to really be the story that ends up manifesting, if you will, in your life. And that's true whether you're trying to manifest health, wellness, wealth, relationships, whatever it is you're trying to create. You can't create beyond your personal story, which is kind of the set point on the thermostat of your abundance. And so what we do a lot with human design is we use it as a deliberate intentional storytelling tool. And I take people into it through a process called Story Lab, where we literally look at your life script. What story are you telling? And we, with great intention, using a very specified template-based process and your human design chart, we take you through a process of really getting in there and rewriting that story and then integrating it differently into the body. The thing that's really interesting is trauma and those places where we hold the story about it's not okay for me to be who I am and how I am. We store those stories in the part of the brain that's associated with present time. That's why we keep reacting, right? We still think it's happening. When we go over into creativity, storytelling, fantasy, play, dress up, glitter, and we start really playing with our personal narrative, we actually take that story out of that left brain, present time part of the brain, and we move it over into the right brain, sensual, creative part of the brain. but we also take it out of time, literally. And if you think about storytelling, we always start stories, really good stories, with once upon a time, right? We take us out, or we take us all into this state of kind of time-free creativity. And then when we move that story after we've rewritten it back into present time, the brain doesn't know the difference between a fantasy-based creative story where you emerge as the victor, the hero, or the heroine in the story, when you rewrite that narrative and then you bring it back into your present awareness and you anchor it in there through creative storytelling, acting it out, painting, poetry, music. When you do that, the brain starts to think it's true, because it is actually true anyway, right? In the true story of who you are incredibly powerful. You're decisive, you're vital, you're a once in a lifetime cosmic event, you're an essential part of the human story. But that's the part we forget, right? And so we have to go through this process of waking up and ultimately remembering and then taking back control over the script we're telling, so we can elevate that script and really live the life we were born to live.
Absolutely. It is so beautiful. Wow. What kind of things have you seen happen? Like, what are some success stories that you have, found with people when you started working with them in this way?
I love this one. I literally just finished this morning revisiting this with a client of mine. She rewrote her story, and she had been profoundly stuck. She'd lost her job. She was struggling with money. She didn't want to live where she was living. She really wanted to go on a vacation, not vacation, an adventure. Didn't want to go get the same kind of job. And so she went through Story Lab. We worked on her story. She rewrote it. And in her story, she was an adventurer and she went on these explorations. And literally 2 weeks later, after she rewrote the story, a friend of hers called and said, "Hey, I want to go on a safari, but I don't want to go by myself. Will you come with me?" And so she got invited to go on a safari. So we were just talking about that this morning, that she wrote this story about being an adventurer and literally created this adventure in her life. One of my other favorite stories is a client of mine who is a trans man who really has such an incredibly beautiful and very, very courageous story. And I asked him one day, I said, "How good can you stand it? Because what I'm hearing is that you're pushing away all the goodness in your life." And he was like, "Oh, you're so right." So we went back and we actually rewrote that story about being open and receptive to all the goodness. And that process of actually writing in that narrative and reframing his perspective on his own story actually got him inspired to literally write his own story. So he just, again, 2 days ago, just finished his manuscript, submitted it to the publishers, he signed a publishing agreement, and it'll hopefully be out by the end of next year. So just, that simple process of just
You
changing.
will have to let me know what that's called and when that comes out. I have a transgendered son.
Mm.
Very similar language coming out of his mouth, and he can't hear it from me, Mom. Like earlier today, I can't find a job, nobody wants me, blah 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 blah. And I was just like, you need to tell a different story. And then he just went right back into the same loop. And I'm watching this loop. But of course, I'm Mom, and he's just like, whatever, Mom.
Another. I keep telling my 15-year-old, "I have a PhD." And she's like, "Yeah, but is that peer reviewed?" I'm like,
Oh,
"I love you for saying that, but also no, but so what?" Right?
back in the day, if I ever wanted him or my ex-husband to believe anything I'd say, I'd watch a documentary on it, right? And then like afterwards, my ex-husband was like, "Oh my gosh, we really need to stop eating GMOs." And I'm like, "Oh, really? I didn't know," and I've been like telling him this for the past 5 years as he's yelling at me on why our grocery bill is so high, because I buy organic. And
Right.
yeah, so I've found sneaky ways, but now that my son's an adult, I can't. I haven't been able to find sneaky ways to drop things into his.
So everybody write this down. The name of this author is Jay DeFazio. And I'll make sure when it comes out, I will be screaming this book you will bawl your way through this book. It's such a beautiful story.
Oh,
really, really beautiful story.
just Jay.
Jay DeFazio.
DeFazio. What a cool name. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look that up. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So we're talking about money and health, adventures. What kind of stuff have you seen in people's relationships? Because those are like the three big areas, right? I see with problems: relationships, health, and money.
The thing about relationships that's so powerful when we start doing storytelling with relationships is that it doesn't only change our own perspective on what we want, what we think we deserve. You start to reframe your perspective on your partner. And this is actually why one of the many, many reasons why I really love human design for relationships, because you start to realize that some of the things that you perceive because of your own unmet needs as being problematic in your partner are actually just personality quirks in your partner. And that when you discover, oh, I'm expecting my partner to fulfill a certain energetic need that I have, and I never learned how to get that need met appropriately. And so I have inappropriate, unreasonable sometimes expectations for my partner, and they're responding back to what I'm asking for inappropriately with their unmet energetic needs. And now nobody is getting any needs met, and we all think it's a problem. When you start to rewrite, first of all, when you can start to reframe your perspective on your partner, it's amazing how quickly your partner's behavior improves. And then, of course, when you sprinkle in human design, you start to see like, oh, some of the things that feel so problematic. Like I'll use my husband as an example. He's moody. Oh my God, he's
Is he
moody
a
and
projector?
provocative. No, my first husband was a projector. My current husband, who I've been with for 18 years, is a generator type, but
Oh,
he's moody,
oh.
and he's provocative, and it used to drive me nuts, even though I knew his human design, until I finally was realizing, okay, in my design, I'm very sensitive, and I like things to stay the same, including people's moods, right? And that's
Yeah.
me, right? That's me. And he's not designed to have the same mood every day. He's a very creative, very artistic person. He's an architect. He has moods all over the place because that's part of his creative energy. And when I can go and be with him and be present and know, okay, I'm an empath. Energetically, I'm an empath. He's not. And when he's having all of his feelings, that's his feelings. That's it. That's all it is. It's his feelings. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. And when I can say, oh, instead of saying, this is a really provocative man with a bad attitude, which was some days I have to work on that mindset. And I could say, oh, this is a really creative person. And I can hear this creative cycle rolling through his energy. And I love that creative part of who he is. And it's really intense right now. So I'm very sensitive to that. I'm gonna say, love you, honey. I'll be in the office. Bye-bye. Or I have learned to be really present to it, really let it come through me. I can be a screen, right? And I can say, okay, he's in this place in his creative cycle, but I don't take it on as my own. I don't absorb it. I don't become responsible for it. I don't think it's about me. Now I know it's about him. And I know, and understanding his chart has given me a huge ability to just let him be where he is without being responsible for his feelings.
Uh, I'm that moody generator, and my husband can be the bitter projector, right? And I used to take his bitterness so personally. Oh my God, it was such an assault to my heart. And then when we're watching your show on Humanity's Team, and I was just like, and he's like pointing at me as you're talking about, letting the bitterness, that just means that he needs to manage his own energy. And instead of reacting to the bitterness, ask him, what is it that you need to do for yourself today to fill up your cup? And he was just like, did you? I'm like, yes, I heard that. I took note. I got it. And I started to cry a little bit because for a long time, I made him wrong, right? For acting that way. And again, like how beautiful it is that now he has permission.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I think that, and so the storytelling part is integral to that experience of also understanding your partner, because when you can reframe the story and really, really hold a space for the love, the connection, the presence, the permission to not just be yourself, but also the permission to get your needs met in a way that feels juicy and aligned. And that becomes part of the narrative of not only yourself, but I actually take couples through a process where they write their couple narrative, the story of who they are together from the beginning, to the end. And when they go through that process, it just really allows them to redefine who they are together in a very new way. And then you bring in this human design piece and you start to be able to say, okay, we're going to die together and we're going to have this beautiful romantic life and we're going to accomplish these things. And we've got this great, couple that's a team. That's our story. And now when I see your human design and I know these things about you, I can understand what I can do to bring out the best in you as we work together to fulfill this story.
I'm all choked up again. It's beautiful. Thank you. Shameless plug time of the show. What are you working on right now? Like, what are you putting out there? Where can people find you?
So I am working, well, I'm always working on stuff like that's a whole nother show right there. But I think one of the things that I always want to encourage people to do is go get your human design chart, because then you have that chart and you can start with that chart. It gives you the beginning part of the journey. It's sort of like if you're going to pack your backpack and start off on an adventure, you want to have your chart in your backpack because that's the map, right? You need that map to know where you're headed. And so if you want to go get the chart, you can go to freehumandesignchart.com. You need to know your birthday, birth time, and birthplace. We don't need to know what room you were born in at the hospital. Sometimes people will say, I was born at this hospital in room 302. Like, that's very specific.
I've never heard that before.
And that chart will generate for you the beginning map for your story and your adventure.
Fantastic. And then how about if they want to come work with you or find out more about what you're doing?
So if you want to go deeper and learn more about your human design, and you want an opportunity to really connect in a community of people who speak human designese, to learn the new vocabulary of being learning human design, we do have a monthly membership community, an online membership community. In that membership community, we have weekly coaching calls. We have an incredible curriculum for people to learn more about their chart. We have monthly master classes. I actually just did one last week on personal empowerment. We're actually doing money next month. What I want to give your listeners is an opportunity to join our membership for free and have a trial month and see. Just try it on, feel it, come meet our people, come hang out with me. We'll do coaching calls. We'll look at your chart. You can take your chart and go through. We have actually a curriculum called the Expedition. You can take yourself through the expedition with your chart and start the adventure of really discovering the true story of who you were born to be.
That's incredible. So then how do we utilize that opportunity? Because I'm going to be jumping in.
Well, what I'll do is how about I give you the link for it, and then you post it for people. Just go through the link, fill out the information, you'll get your chart, and then you get rolled into the community and you can come join us.
Awesome. Yeah, I meant to check before we got on here on whether your team sent me your bio and your headshots and all that stuff, but hopefully they did, and hopefully that link is in there. But if not, yeah.
If it's not, you know where I live. So
in Sedona?
No.
Oh, were you?
Wisconsin.
I was like, oh, you're Wisconsin. How do you go from Sedona to Wisconsin?
Oh, that's a whole nother story.
Is that a long story?
Well, it goes like this. It's hard to raise kids in Sedona. And I eventually ended up being a single parent, a full-time single parent. And, I had teenagers and I had to drive 45 minutes to go to photocopy. So I moved to Minnesota, fell in love with a Minnesotan, and then found this really incredible teeny tiny hippie community in Wisconsin. And here I am.
Oh, shut up. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, very cool. I'm in Colorado. Just not too far away from Boulder. So I've got a bit of a hippie vibe in this area as well. So gotta love our peeps. Amazing. Karen, I cannot even say thank you enough to the bottom of my heart. And if you put anything new out there, a book, and you want to promote, hit me up. I would love to have you back.
Okay,
You have been
awesome.
by far one of my favorite guests ever, and I would love to have you back. So the invitation is there, and everybody else, make sure to go check out the show notes. If you like what you hear, make sure to share, like, and subscribe, because that's how this information gets out in the world. That is how we continue to share and elevate and bring up consciousness and change people's lives. So thanks again. Stay tuned and have a healthy day.
Thank you.
And as always, if you were inspired by anything that you heard on today's show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. That's the only way that we help change people's lives and get this information out into the world so that change can begin one person at a time, the way that it did with me and changed my life so many years ago. Make sure too, right, if you really want to start changing your life, it starts with your diet. It starts with what's on the end of your fork. And if you want to start making changes, go to my website, www.renegadehealthboss, RENEGADE, health, HEALTHBOSS.com. and download your free ebook, your free cooking guide, Real Cooking to Real Life. And in there, you'll also find links to the videos. Don't just learn what to eat, but why, right? Don't just learn how to cook, but the reasonings behind why I use some of the tools that I do, the toxins. You've got to lower your toxic burden, and we can do that in the kitchen and with what you eat. So make sure that you pick up that free resource. It's amazing. And while we're at it, we got to do a little disclaimer. Anything that you hear on this show is for entertainment value only. You cannot hold Heather Gray, the Lyme Boss, Discovering Health LLC, or Renegade Health Boss liable for any damages that may have occurred while you have tried something that you've heard on the show. The show also contains affiliate sponsorship and paid advertising, just a heads up. But to also know that no advertising gets on here without my approval first. It's usually products that I have tried and have my stamp of approval on it. So never fear when it comes to that. But yes, cannot hold me liable. Do not, this is for educational purposes only. Please make sure that you talk to your doctor before making any medical changes. And God bless. Stay tuned.